in preparing for a long road trip, whether that's a day trip or overnight, there's some things you really should check on your bike. The things that I check for, of course, you know, there's the basics. You want to check your oil. At the very least, make sure you've got oil on your bike and it's not running out. My old KLR 650 used to burn through a lot of oil, so that was the thing I regularly had to check. On this bike, this is my Suzuki v-strom 1000. It doesn't go through the oil like the other one, so I find myself neglecting that check every now and then, and I really shouldn't be. So check the oil on your bike before any, that should be before any trip, but really particularly a long road trip, because you'd hate to be out in the middle of nowhere, like somewhere like this, where suddenly you need oil and you can't find it. And of course, a motorcycle takes very specific oil. You just can't get some oil from someone driving by in a car saying, hey, I've got some motor oil here for you. The other basic things as well, just check your brake fluid. Make sure it's not running out. You don't necessarily have to make sure it's changed, but having to make sure you've changed your brake fluid is a good thing. Just make sure you got brake fluid. Make sure there's no leak in the system. In my case, I also have hydraulic clutch, so I've got to make sure that fluid is topped up. That's also brake fluid. And then of course, you know, the basics. Signal lights. I checked my signal lights before because if I'm going on a long road trip, I want to make sure people can see me. So I'll go through and I'll check my tires. So even before this trip, I had to pump up my tires. They weren't the rear one was down just a couple of PSI, not much, but I wanted to make sure it was up there for this trip. Now, aside from the basics, I also carry tools. And I know there's a lot of riders that do carry tools. There's also a lot of riders that don't carry tools. I have some friends that don't carry tools. They might have the kind of like the one that came with the motorcycle under the seat, but that doesn't quite do enough for you if you need something. So I'm not going to open up my toolkit. Every motorcycle is different. Every motorcycle might need a different toolkit. But what I do is the tools I have in my motorcycle, they're in one of my saddlebags right now. They're the same tools that I'll use to work on my motorcycle. This way, I know I'm prepared. And if I'm not prepared, then it's something that I haven't worked on and will have taken me by surprise. But I like the peace of mind of having some tools. And I also have, you know, a little bit of tape and some zap straps, because you never know what might happen. Well, the nice thing about YouTube is I can do a little bit of time travel. So I'm nearing the end of my ride today, and I discovered that my whole clutch assembly was loose. So how I noticed was my mirror seemed like it was out, so I readjusted my mirror and still didn't seem right, so I grabbed it and I pulled it, and the whole assembly started moving, and everything is bolted to the assembly. The mirror, my heated grips, and of course the clutch assembly, which is hydraulic, because all it did was a little 8mm bolt here it took, and I had to tighten it up, and now it's nice and solid. But yeah, you know, if you're going to be going a long road trip between stops, make sure you've got some sort of fluids or something. If there's not going to be, now it's pretty rare for you not be able to find a gas station or something where there's risks, because of course you're going to need fuel. But if it's a long time, let's say it's like your bike can go 400 kilometers and it's 300 kilometers till the next gas station and it's hot out, you might want to make sure you have some water. So that's not really a check, but that's kind of a nice thing to have. Of course, you want to make sure your motorcycle's fueled up. So I fueled up before I left. I've got about 3/4 of a tank. You know, I know where the next gas stop is, so you know I'm doing okay. I burned most of my fuel coming up into the mountains. One thing I talked about the tires. I know I'm kind of all over the board here. It's just because I'm enjoying my ride, talking about things. But going back to the tires, make sure you've got proper tread on your tires. You know, I do notice these Mitas tires that I've got, they're kind of an off-road tire. They're wearing out pretty fast. I still have a lot of tread. I may not have to change them till the fall. So another thing to consider is communication. Now, this is going to be for a really long road trip. Like where I am now, there's going to be parts of my trip where there's no cell phone service. So I've got a satellite communicator that can connect to my phone, and it'll allow me to send text. So I can text for help, like an SOS, or I can text my family and say I'm going to be late, or that I need to stop and stay somewhere. You know, those kinds of things. So I'm big on that. Now that this monthly fee, there's an upfront cost to buy the communicator, and then there's a monthly fee, like a subscription, but it's well worth it. So I carry one of those. Another thing I carry is a change of clothes, because you just never know when you might get stuck somewhere, and it's kind of nice to have a change of clothes, you know, underwear, t-shirt, things like that, in case you do get stuck, so you're not wearing the same underclothes on the next day. And I'm talking about a daylight. Let's talk about a long day ride, and if you got caught out somewhere. So if I'm doing a long day ride that's, you know, going to be, you know, let's say over 10 hours, I'm going to make sure I have some extra stuff with me just in case. Now those are just kind of my essentials. That's, I guess I should have prefaced it with, that's kind of my essentials for a long one-day ride, kind of your longer one-day ride, not a multi-day ride. But if you have anything else that you might suggest, I'd like to hear about it. Please leave a comment below. Take care, ride safe, thanks for watching.